You are listening to Rouge Radio, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's time to get the point as Rouge Radio is ready to kick off.
Ready!
The best football talk with the best in the business.
So what is the cost? You have 2 first-round picks this year because the Argos are dumb enough to trade for Drew Willie.
A few rookies.
We go directly to the on-field product. We welcome to the show the 20th overall pick in this past Sunday's CFL draft, DeAndre Wright of the Alouettes. DeAndre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And the occasional Hall of Famer.
Please welcome Doug Brown, who is one of the members of the current class of 2016 in the CFL Hall of Fame. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you guys for the kind words and for having me on the program.
Rouge Radio is on the air. Here's your hosts, Robert Dalton and Tony Allen.
Radio podcast powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. My name is Robert Dalton. It doesn't matter because my co-host, he's back with us, Mr. Tony. I just hoped that both teams had fun, but one team had more fun than the other. Allen. We'll talk more about that. This is episode 526, powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. Let's go to the booth announcer, shall we?
Rouge Radio is sponsored by the good people at Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com, enter the promo code Rouge, and you'll get your discount, 20% off the entire order, plus free worldwide shipping. Go to Manscaped. Your balls? Oh, they will thank you.
Oh, thank you, everybody. So Canada can now focus on the best sport in the world right now, the CFL. But do you have any thoughts on the finals other than Oilers suck kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I'm glad it's over. I'm glad they lost again. It's it's a good day. I'm glad everything resets, and we'll try again next year, and hopefully it's not the Oilers 3 years in a row. And it's so rare. It's hard to think that the Oilers are going to be back 3 years in a row. It's hard to think the Panthers will be back 3 years in a row. And
they were there 3 years in a row. They just won it 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. It's going to be tough, especially with the salary cap might be going up, but you got to give McDavid a lot of money. This is it. This could be McDavid's last year if you don't get that dollar value right. And, if you're McDavid, people say, he wants to be there. He'll give a hometown discount. And, well, the last time he gave the Oilers a hometown discount on a contract year, they used that extra money to go get Jack Campbell. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm just glad it's over. Yeah, now it's all CFL football. We had a little Blue Jays baseball thrown in.
Speaking of bad GMing in Edmonton, Ed Hervey might be doubles. Thinking twice against some of the free agent acquisitions. Now it's still early, but it's still fun how bad GMing in Edmonton isn't just limited to the Edmonton Oilers. So we had a pretty good week in week number 2. So first off, what caught your eye? I mean, before we get into our magnificent bastard, anything that caught your eye is maybe just kind of like maybe caught your attention, maybe something you want to pay attention for the rest of the season?
Well, the one thing that kind of I like, the games haven't really been as close as they were last year. I mentioned that I hope we have the same kind of great regular season, but I guess the one thing it is good to watch is offense hasn't really been a problem in the Canadian Football League this year. I think there's only a handful of games where one team hasn't broken the 20-point mark, and I mean, in most games, they're right closer. Like Toronto had a 10-point game. The Elks' first game was only 14 or something like that. Like Toronto is struggling to put points on the board. The Elks have only played one game, so we'll see what they do this weekend. But all winning teams, with the exception of 2 games, I think, have not failed to put less than 28 points on the board. The majority, like there's only 2 games have been 28 points, 29 points, and other than that, the winning team is at least having no problem putting offense on the board. There's still a pretty big gap in victories, but again, the losing team is still putting 20-plus points on the board as well, and on an afternoon, that should be enough to help you win. So it's good to see offense coming, especially if you're a Calgary Stampeders fan. I think kind of let's see where this goes if Vernon Adams actually wakes up, because the Calgary Stampeders are averaging like 35 points a game and Vernon Adams hasn't even thrown a touchdown yet. It's all the run game in Calgary. So the one thing where Calgary, I was hoping to see them rebound in is the ground game. If the quarterback, any quarterback in Calgary, can start throwing the ball in the end zone, the Stampeders, I think, are going to be an interesting team to watch for sure.
Yeah, for Calgary, and I'll get to I guess my vote on this week. But when you talk about Calgary, and I'm thinking they're surprising me. But you just pointed out Vernon Adams Jr. is doing all this without throwing a touchdown pass. So are we kind of expecting that when he figures out the aerial attack, that Calgary is just all of a sudden just going to like blow teams away? And I don't think they're built that way. So it's kind of like if like every year there's a team that comes out of the gate and comes out or comes out hot, and then they kind of fade away. Is this year's Calgary Stampeders team this version? Because I'm thinking, yeah, they could get a couple more touchdowns through the air, but is that going to force them ahead, like leaps and bounds over the next best team, or is just everything else going to come back to reality? I mean, we're going to talk about their game against Ottawa, which might be against Dustin Crum, but I mean, they have a huge opportunity to start up the season 3-0, but is Calgary Stampeders this year's smoke and mirrors team?
I don't know. I guess in sports you can always split hairs. You can always find reasons to take away for a team, or you can always find ways to over-evaluate a team. And sure, on the surface, it's like, oh my God, like the Stampeders are running the ball down everyone's throat into the end zone, and Vernon Adams is going to score. So when Vernon Adams starts throwing touchdowns, are they going to start winning games by 50 points? And then there's the side that says, well, is Calgary only having to rely on the run game because they're not throwing touchdowns? And if Vernon Adams starts throwing touchdowns, does that mean they're going to stop rushing footballs? Like I think if Vernon Adams does find his touch, I think the touchdowns are going to stay the same. They're just going to be a little bit more evenly distributed. I think we could still see a dominantly offensive Calgary Stampeders team, but instead of 4 rushing touchdowns, now you've got 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns, or 3 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown, or 2 passing, 3 rushing. Like it will balance itself out, and you're not going to see in week 1 they rushed for 3, in week 2 they rushed for 4, and now when Vernon Adams starts scoring, they're going to score 3 rushing touchdowns still, 4 rushing touchdowns still, but they're also going to score 4 passing touchdowns as well. I don't think that's how it equates. It just might mean some of those rushing touchdowns become passing touchdowns, and your offense still kind of balances out.
So if Calgary beats Ottawa and they go jump up 3-0, are we allowed to jump to they might be the worst 3-0 team ever?
Well, I don't think, with the exception of the opposite of the best 0-3 team, you can't have a bad 3-0
yeah,
team.
I know. I like that. Obviously, you could tell the tongue in cheek.
Yeah, you know what? If it was all field goals and a defensive touchdown, then maybe then they're absolute smoke and mirror. But you can't smoke and mirror away their ground game right now. Yeah. And it's getting it done. I think that's as legit as anything.
No, I think more so is the conversation is can this team who wasn't able to do it last year or the year before, is this something that this team, this 2025 version, can they become more consistent? Can they keep this going? And my vote goes to the larger sample size and not to the small sample size. So that's
you take it at face value. They beat 2 teams, excuse me, that were beatable, and they did it its fast value. You beat a team you're supposed to beat, so go ahead.
Yeah,
and it's going to come down with who you determine is an upper echelon team, and then what Calgary does against them.
And to be honest with you, I mean the final score probably didn't really speak volumes, but I can honestly say that the Stampeders did beat the Tiger Cats and the Argonauts quite handedly. Like, it wasn't like the stats might have been indicated that the score could have been closer, and the score was closer based than what the stats told the story. But when I'm watching that game, Rene Paredes misses a couple field goals. Bo Levi Mitchell had a lot of garbage time success in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, it really tells you how good the Calgary Stampeders. So I don't want this to be oh my God, I'm not giving any credit to the Calgary Stampeders. You are what you are, and right now they are 2-0. Will that continue? My guess says no. Before we get to your magnificent bastard, hey, let's talk about Chris Streveler. This guy who's been in the league since 2018, and I think a lot of people, we included, we talked about this last week. We talked about how BC was going to not necessarily run away, but they were going to have their way. They were going to force Streveler into being a quarterback, and we thought that it was not going to happen. Sure enough, Chris Streveler, through the air, probably has his closest game that he'll ever have, where he'll be in comparison to, I guess, I'm trying to think of a good quarterback. Mike Riley comes to mind. Statistically, he had his best game as a quarterback, and I find it. And the odd thing here is he did it without running the ball. Usually, with a Chris Streveler, if you told me he threw 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, my first question is, well, how many times did he rush the ball, and what was his yards per carry? He rushed it twice. That was it. I think once, majorly. I think he might have ran to avoid a sack, and he ended up gaining like a yard. But statistically, I think that was one of Chris Streveler's top yards. And I've said, just don't confuse this with me saying that Chris Streveler is ever going to be QB1. Never. But I've always said, I made a TikTok video about this a couple of weeks ago. Chris Streveler's career completion percentage is hovering around 65. If you told me that a quarterback sucks, his completion percentage would be well below 50, and his TD to interception ratio would be reverse. His TD to interception ratio is 1-to-1 before Thursday or last Thursday, and now he's got 3 more touchdowns or 2 more touchdowns than he does interceptions career-wise. That's not bad. And part of me says, okay, is his offensive line really good, or is this the ipso facto the result of a brand new offensive coordinator? But we'll never find out, because Zach Collaros is coming back. We'll talk more about that. And
statistically, I think that was the most clothed we've seen Chris Streveler in a while. So
yes, I think the last time that we saw Chris Streveler was in a fur coat,
bearskin jacket, and no shirt on, chugging beers. So.
Yeah, I was just because this is kind of like a Simpsons reference. I kind of half expected him to go turn into see my vest.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the next segment.
Oh my God! Number 1.
Do you have a next segment?
Seinfeld, you magnificent bastard!
And I guess you didn't hear that part. the segment in the background.
I said something. I'm like, oh, there must be an intro that I'm not hearing.
And usually I do this post-production, but because we're doing everything live, kind of, I put that. But I guess I should have made sure that you can actually hear it. Tony, what do you got for this week's Magnificent Bastard?
This was your recommendation, and I didn't see it live, but when I looked it up, it was pretty hard not to, first day, to put him down for the Magnificent Bastard, because I think after I watched the highlight, I texted you and I said, I don't know if there's anything more beautiful in football or majestic than watching that running back hit the line of scrimmage, then just come out the other side and hit open air and trot all the way down the field. And that's just, catches are great. Catches are super exciting. But I don't know, there's just something about seeing that running back hit the line of scrimmage and then come through the other side. And after I saw that play by Matthew Peterson, I'm like, you know what? I think this is pretty much wrapped up right on day one of the weekend. And I'm like, damn, you magnificent bastard. That was a great romp.
There we go. And I kind of mentioned I'm kind of hoping that Matthew Peterson's middle name is Oliver, or at least it starts with an O, because then we can make the comment about how MOP replaced the reigning MOP. But all right. Where's
And I do apologize for looking like I'm doing a vacation blog on a cruise ship or something like that, but I am stuck out in the middle of the work, and my trip home got canceled, so I've been kind of hanging out in Swift Current. And by the way, Swift Current has a beautiful downtown. I know I take my shots at Saskatchewan as a whole, but I mean, Saskatchewan's not a big city. Swift Current's not a big city, but I had a chance to go for a walk because I've had all day to kill before I can catch my train back home. And it's a very nice downtown Swift Current has, and they've got probably one of the best toy/candy shops I've ever seen. So
you got a laugh
there
track
you go.
for saying that Swift Current has a decent downtown. I was looking for the laugh track for my joke about. There we go. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next as we preview week 3 of the season.
Rouge Radio is partnered with the good people over at Sports Interaction. Go to SIA.com/Rouge. Your first deposit will be matched up to 100%. And as always, please play and gamble responsibly. Gentlemen?
Oh, thank you. Let's get to the first game of the week that happens Thursday tomorrow night. We are recording Wednesday. The Montreal Alouettes are in Edmonton. This will be a late game, I believe. The Alouettes are favored by 6.5 points, and the over-under is set at 48.5. The Elks are well-rested. Montreal getting Charleston Rambo back in their lineup, and they look unbeatable almost last week. And I know there was a back-to-back week where they were playing a backup quarterback, but I still feel that I think a lot of us are sleeping on the Alouettes this year. We took that. Okay, Cody Fajardo. Okay, he kind of faded off last year. Gets traded for McLeod Bethel Thompson, a guy who is finally going to get the reins. Okay, there's going to be a drop off. I honestly don't see it. I don't see this drop off and coming out of Montreal. But I don't know if they are going to come out of the gates like starting 5-0. But I can tell you right now, I have them predicting 3-0 at least after this game. Where do you see this game going?
Yeah, the thing with Montreal is they look like they are back at it. They look like they're going to be the cream of the crop in the East, because it's sure the hell not going to be the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And even when Drew Brown comes back, I think his team is going to leave him a horrible hill to climb. And Toronto just does not look like it's competitive at all in 2025. So right now, I mean, I think Montreal just needs to be smart, get through the season. And I think already you're talking about Montreal, probably finishing on top of the East, just play some good football. The Elks, I don't know why I don't give up on these guys. I shouldn't. I don't know how someone's going to say, how can you hate on the Oilers, be so anti-Oilers, but have faith in the Elks? And I don't know what it is, but I feel like maybe in a week or two, maybe this will be the week I finally say, okay, I've given you too much rope. It's time to start reeling it back in, the expectations for the Edmonton Elks. But I'm going to do it again. I'm going to finally say, if not after this week, then I'm giving up on thinking the Elks are going to be better than they are. But I'm going to take them this week more as a defiant last stand to see if they can make my optimism and to justify my optimism in what's happening in Edmonton. I'm going to give them a 28-23 close win against the Alouettes.
Oh, wow. I love the fact, like, I'm not giving up on the Elks. I also think that they are a team that had a revamped secondary. They revamped defense. So stuff like that does take a little bit of time. They've had that bye week to get everything all sorted together. I still think they're probably another week or two before we could start seeing a glimpse of what Mark Killam has the expectation, a glimpse of what even Ed Hervey has envisioned for this team. But when you have the result that you did against BC in week 1. You had the bye. That just kind of just like just sinks into your deep innards. And then you come back from your bye and you've got this hot Montreal Alouette team. I don't think this speaks volumes about Edmonton, but rather it speaks volumes on Montreal. I have Montreal in the lock of the week covering that 6.5 spread, and I think they might even double it. I think the Montreal Alouettes win 32-17 over the Edmonton Elks. Friday night game, the Saskatchewan Roughriders are in Toronto to play the Toronto Argonauts. Still another week without Chad Kelly. Looks like he will be making his return in 2025 in week 4. The Argonauts definitely need him. The Saskatchewan Roughriders obviously are welcoming, or Toronto's actually going to be welcoming Kadeem Carey back by virtue of being the part of the visiting team locker room. And the Riders are going to be without Sam Emilis, and of course they're still going to be without KSB. So that's 2 non-import, or I guess national targets that the Saskatchewan Roughriders are going to be missing. But on the other side, the Toronto Argonauts are missing Wynton McManus, who's not going to be participating. So I think the lack of those targets and the lack of that hard-hitting linebacking position are going to cancel each other out. So what is going to be the issue? To me, I think Nick Arbuckle probably has 250 yards throwing and maybe 2 interceptions. I'm still not convinced that Nick Arbuckle, save for that one game in the Grey Cup, and it really played into the lack of prepping on Winnipeg's side. But on this game, there's nothing that I've seen from Nick Arbuckle this year that says that he's going to just revamp his game against the top-tier defense in Saskatchewan. I think this is going to be easy. I think this might be my money in the bank pick. Saskatchewan does win this one. Maybe take the under on this one. Trevor Harris might be relying too much on the run, and I don't anticipate AJ Ouellette replicating his efforts last week. But I do take Saskatchewan winning this one. 20-16 over the Toronto Argonauts. Tony, where do you see this one going?
I think they say you don't judge a book by its cover, but I think this one, the cover of the book, says it all, just based on the first 2 weeks for the Riders and the first 2 weeks for the Argonauts. I don't think there's any hidden gems here. There's no mystery. There's nothing to uncover. I think right now what we just take it at face value that the Riders are better than the Toronto Argonauts head to head. So I think the Argos are going to Arbuckle under the Riders pressure, and I'm going to give a 30-14 win to Saskatchewan.
All right. So if you ever wonder why the title of the podcast, there it is. Arbuckle. You're going to let a little space in between R and the B. Saturday's got a doubleheader. Calgary hosts the Ottawa Redblacks, and I figured this was odd, and I think this might change. The Ottawa Redblacks are favored by 1.5, and the over-under is at 50.5. When I saw this,
run out and throw your money at this game.
Yeah,
with those odds too before they change.
Yeah, I'm not. The sites locked me out a little bit. It's kind of timed out, but at that time when I did look at it, Drew Brown was full participant in practice. Earlier today, Dustin Crum was getting a good portion of the reps. I'm not even Drew Brown, if he plays, he might not even be healthy enough. And I think that, I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop in Calgary. Outside of Drew Brown, I don't know if Ottawa is that team that I expect them to be. We're fans of Drew Brown. Obviously, when he came through the Winnipeg organization, so there's a little bit of a bias here on my part. I didn't know that there was going to be a huge drop-off from QB1 to QB2, much less QB1 to QB3 up in Ottawa. And even if he plays and he's not healthy, that Ottawa team just does not look, they look complacent when they shouldn't be. I think Calgary wins this one. Home team, home field advantage. even if Rene Paredes goes like complete rookie Rene Paredes, where he misses a couple of field goals, I think that might still be enough. I think Calgary wins this one. Again, low scoring affair, 23-14, Calgary over Ottawa. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm not much off of you either, and I think I pretty much laid out how you beat the Calgary Stampeders, unless Vernon Adams Jr. starts chucking the ball into the end zone. You got to control that run game, and if you can do that and keep those running backs out of the end zone, Ottawa can win. But do they have the hogs there to do that? Do they have the defense to keep the running game down in Calgary? So, I mean, this one feels like it. You can make an argument that Ottawa, if they can shut that down, can win. But if you shut the running game down, is that going to wake up Vernon Adams, because he knows he's got to carry the load then? So I don't think it's enough to make me question the Stampeders versus the Red Blacks right now. I mean, anything can happen in the Canadian Football League, but I'm not far off with you. I have 28-18, so I gave each team 4 extra points.
Yeah, I'm still in the midst of trying to figure out if that. Well, I guess I could show later. Let's go to the last game of the year, or the last game of the week. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, fresh off their win over the BC Lions, have the rubber match against the BC Lions. This one is going to be in BC. The Bombers are favored by 2.5 points, and wouldn't you know it, all 4 visiting teams this week are the favorites. The over-under set at this one is 50.5. Tony, where do you got with this one?
I think this is the last time I'm going to stick my neck out in the CFL for the first couple weeks. I like to take some long shots at the beginning because things are still up in the air. Even week 2, there's still some unknowns. There's still some X factor players to step up and have good games. And again, I don't know why. I just want to take BC in this one. And I'm going to give them the 38-28 win. It's not even close to being my lock of the week. But again, I want BC to show me something. And maybe I'm not picking this out of X's and O's. I'm picking this because I want Nathan Rourke and the BC Lions to show me something. It's not about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Zach Claros, if he's coming back, we'll see what he's got for his first game of the regular season. But give me the BC Lions 30-28. And then that's probably the last time I stick my neck out for either the Lions or the Elks.
Yeah, this is like for me, it's like is the case when we have these back-to-back games. You like 98% of the time, I'll always go for the team that lost. It's just the way sports works, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you lose a close one. I mean, granted, you lost by 14, not really close, but you come back, you dust yourself off. We don't even know if Nathan Rourke is going to be playing this Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
He left early with that oblique injury. Jeremiah Mazzoli taking the majority of the reps. Brady Oliveira obviously is going to miss, but Olivier Peterson, that's going to be his name. I don't even know what his middle name is, but officially through Rouge Radio, it's now Matthew Olivier Peterson.
It's going to be Orthenthal just so we can't have fun with it anymore. That's what was that bad? Should I have made that joke? That's horrible. Let's edit that out.
I can't. No, we gotta leave that in. We gotta.
All right. Please don't hate me. I'm going to hell.
Okay. Where was I? But there's so many things that are changing, and when you got on BC side, Nathan Rourke's not there. 38-year-old Jeremiah Mazzoli is playing. I might be exaggerating on the age. I think he's right up there, like 36, 37.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at, and then, you know, we talked about last week, or at least I did with some friends, that, you know, the nuances and the tendencies of a new offensive coordinator, you know, they now have film on that, but they have film on that with Chris Streveler. As we said last week, Chris Streveler is a different animal than Zach Claros. So how is BC going to game plan? Because they got ran over by Chris Streveler as a quarterback and Matthew Peterson. Things are going to be different, but I expect it to be somewhat of the same. The score might be a little bit closer. I still have Winnipeg covering the spread, and I do like, you know, BC's they're I'm not saying they're the bad football team, but I think these are the games that BC are going to look back when they realize that they're settling for a crossover spot or they outright miss the playoffs. This is a game that they're going to these back-to-backs are going to be games they're going to look at and say this is why we suck. So I have Winnipeg winning this one 30-26 over the BC Lions. I think Winnipeg eventually found a returner. BC still hasn't solved their special teams play outside of field goal kicking, and I think right now, on paper, now that Winnipeg's got QB1, I expect a slow start. As always, this is his extension of preseason, but I think that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers of old, where they find ways to win, is going to come out like the Undertaker of the casket in WWE, where they're just going to be like, hey, we're here, we're just going to take over. This fourth quarter is ours. 30-26, Winnipeg wins. So I think we only agreed on 2 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it feels like my 2 Stampeders picks are like the only 2 football games I've gotten right this year. I need to get hot. I've had a slow start to 25.
Well, I can't remember I had BC winning last week, but I did convince myself Winnipeg would cover the spread, and they did. But outside of that, I think I was wrong about the Toronto-Calgary game. So I was like 2 for 2, which was better than my 0 for 4 next week, which is nothing compared to Ontario, who are 0-6. I made the joke online that now that the new capital of Ontario is now Owen Sound.
There you go.
Where's my laugh track? There we go. All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, there isn't. Just hopefully I'll be back next week with a better perspective for the show than my jittery hand moving around as I try and go through my notes.
That's certainly fine. I don't think anybody knows.
And maybe I'll find a raise or 2 before then and get rid of this.
Well, I'm glad that we caught you on a day where it doesn't look like that you're blocking the sun.
Yeah, I know. No lights on. The window's open.
There we go.
Good day in Swift Current.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode. Make sure to follow us on Blue Sky. Of course, like and subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, and of course, all your podcast apps that we are available on. For Tony, I'm Dalts. See you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.